everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and here's DJ, and DJ and I both made each other watch stuff. We're going to do a He Made Me Watch. It's been a long time since Eric and I have done one of these, and DJ wanted to show me a movie, and I had a movie I wanted to show him, and I thought, well, you know what, we have a built-in show for this. It's been a long time since we've done one, but we still can't. Nothing is stopping us, even though it's not regular, so here's a bonus video for you. Today, we're going to talk about both The Matrix, which is a 20-year-old film, 20th anniversary just this year as we're filming, although as we post this, we'll be into 2020, and so it'll be after the anniversary, and Arrival, which is only 3 years old.
Correct.
And obviously, I missed that one because we're doing it on this show, and somehow he never saw The Matrix. Somehow it just never happened. He never saw it, and it was a thing that I could not abide any longer. So why don't we start there? Because that's the first one we watched, and you're afraid it's going to seep out of your head. There's a lot going on in The Matrix.
Well, Cap got here, and like the first thing he said was, no matter what happens on this trip, I'm showing you The Matrix.
It's going to happen.
And then like we figured out we can't really do anything together that doesn't work for one of your video formats. So we're like, yeah, we'll turn it into a He Made Me Watch.
That's true. Everything we did this week, we kind of turned into a video.
Yeah, pretty much. Even driving.
Yeah, that's true. Check out Patreon. It's riveting. Really, it is. Spoiler alert, we don't crash, but there's a couple of opportunities for it.
No, yeah, I mean, you ruined it, but I mean, there's some close calls.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. But it's a selling point. There's that fine line between not ruining anything and putting the stuff in the trailer that'll get the people to look at the thing.
Well, that goes perfectly with what I made you watch, because even though you know the ending, that's still a very suspenseful scene at the end, even though they tell you what's going to happen right before that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's really impressive. So
First
I did
Matrix.
not bring how we felt about Signs, but I think it probably goes without saying that both of us were feeling each other's movies. I think I don't want to speak for you, but you seem to enjoy the one I showed you, and at the risk of giving too much away with Arrival, that movie hit me in a place that
so good.
it resonated with me on a personal level in a number of ways. I'm very much looking forward to watching it. But anyway, so since I didn't bring the Feelin' It signs, I thought today I would wear both red and green, so if we weren't feeling something, I would just stay seated. And if we are feeling something, I would stand up, and you can see my green pants. So we are feeling it. DJ is feeling the movie I showed him, and I am feeling the movie that he showed me. So there we go. The Feelin' It signs are out of the way. There we go. I didn't want to ruin these pants, or I would have gotten a Sharpie and been like, feeling it? Not feeling on the back. That's what I should have done, actually, is I should have flipped around,
just
right?
Cut the sleeves off and turn them into shorts so we could each hold up our pant leg.
Yeah. And now I'm thinking, we could have done it that way, but now I'm thinking I should make like a Feelin' It outfit, you know? Where
a suit.
It's,
Where it says it on the back.
On the back,
The
yeah.
rhinestones.
And like on the front, it says Feelin' It, on the back it says not feeling it. Because I think you should have to turn your back to it if you don't like it, right? That should be on the back.
On the back,
Not feeling it.
But the front, you have to open it.
To open it was like super, this looks like a job for feeling it.
The yellow inline.
The yellow inline. Well, it's a wonderful segue that no one will understand to The Matrix. So I discovered a number of weird little things this time watching The Matrix, and I'm not going to launch into all of those now because I'm going to let DJ have the floor. I have talked about The Matrix some on the channel. Eric and I are going to, hopefully in the not too distant future, finally do the long-awaited commentary on The Matrix that we've been talking about for a long time. So I'm going to not talk too much, but I'll help you fill in the blanks, and I'll throw out stuff here and there if the spirit moves me. But something I noticed that I had not before is that Agent Smith and all of the agents have yellow inlays in their jackets, and that is so cool looking, and it makes it way less generic, because I always thought it'd be really cool to cosplay an agent from The Matrix, but you could be like anything. You could be a Man in Black, you could be like any FBI agent in anything, but then if somebody came on, like at a convention, they were like, well, who are you supposed to be? You just yellow inlay, I'm Agent Smith. Like, yeah.
I mean, and the glasses. Gotta have the glasses.
Well, yes. But again, there's a lot of stuff that have that too. Because again, Men in Black also have glasses.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know what. I guess that is the only thing that distinguishes them.
The only other thing is the radio. Is the
thing in the ear.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Or if you had like a twin brother and you were just both walking around.
So before you tell us about how you felt about The Matrix, just besides feeling it, okay, those
You're
are
also wearing red socks.
Yeah,
so you can use those.
Yeah, I could have been like not feeling it. Socks. Yeah, I'm really festive, not on purpose. How come you never saw this movie? What happened? It's a cultural touchstone.
I don't think it's that hard to understand. I was born in '92, so I was only 7 when this came out. I'm obviously not going to go see an R-rated movie. My parents, I couldn't see R-rated movies growing up. and I just never went back to it. Maybe partially because of the sequels ruining the allure of it.
Sure.
So, and it wasn't as big. Like, I know it was really big at the time, but like I said, I was 7.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really into it.
Well, I just I didn't mean to put you on the spot and like interrogate you about it. You know, you put a lamp over your head, but it's such an so 2 things. It's obviously such an influential movie, just on action stuff in general. There's like a lot of things that you've seen that would not exist without the Matrix.
Yeah, like Shrek.
And sure, and. Like Shrek.
They do a whole Matrix parody.
Oh, that's I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. But the second thing is you're a martial arts guy, and this is a movie I would have expected you would have seen because you're a martial arts guy, and that's the main reason I asked you that.
I think it was. I think it kind of is. I think everyone has this to some degree. I kind of have it. I know I have it. Where if something gets so popular, you kind of
You resist it.
I don't know why. I don't know
yeah, I've had that with all kinds of stuff.
So,
sure.
but definitely, like I told you, I used to. Like you said, I used to do martial arts. I used to perform on the demo team at my school, and not my school, my karate studio, and the other 3 guys that were on my team were huge into this movie, and we used a lot of music in some of our performances. We did some fight scenes that he clearly based on this. Like we did one where he was doing the whole one hand behind his back, and we were all 3 fighting him, and that was JJ. That was another guy I worked with. But yeah, so I knew a lot about
2 hours, 15 minutes out of your life, you would have understood all of the stuff you were doing in karate school. Yeah,
I think I just resisted it partly because of that, partly because I heard so much about it, and partly because of like I said, the sequels. I thought this was something so much different than what it was.
Yeah.
Like all the visuals, pretty much all the visuals I've seen from this movie, except I guess there's 2 huge ones from this.
It's all from Reloaded.
Everything is from the other 2. Like the big giant Agent Smith fight,
yeah.
The highway chase.
I would imagine most of what you've seen is from Reloaded, not Revolutions, though, because Revolutions takes place primarily in Zion, and a lot of that fighting is really boring, and it's not hand-to-hand stuff. Yeah, most of the hand-to-hand stuff is just in a big outdoor ring fight at the end with Smith and Neo. It's just it's just another one of those where you have you see bits of that. Okay, where you have a bunch of the duplicate. Yes. No, yeah, that's right. Or you have a bunch of the duplicate Smiths on the road, and they let the original fight Neo without helping, and yeah.
Okay.
Gotta have that whole thing.
Yeah, but no, this was not what I thought it was going to be at all. I really liked how small and personal it was, and it was just like a small group of people, and mostly it was much closer to like kind of like it had kind of a Daredevil feel. Obviously, this was way before that. But
sure.
The Raid, like those ones that because there was a lot of closed buildings. Like most of the fights were except for the one on the roof, obviously. But most of it was in closed buildings, like the suspenseful scene when they're crawling in the walls and stuff, and then the big fight in the lobby with Trinity and Neo, obviously, and even the fight at the end with Neo versus Smith was. Is he called Smith in this, or is he just an agent?
No, he's Smith. Yeah.
Okay, and Agent Smith at the end was inside of a building. It was so much smaller than I expected, based on seeing all the stuff from the sequel. So
a building and then a train station, or in underground where trains go.
Yeah, the train.
Yeah. the subway. The subway. Yeah. You know where the trains
go. It's the C train. But no, I really enjoyed it.
That's not heaven.
That's not heaven. We were saying that the whole movie. Not the whole movie, but during that scene.
During the part where the trains go.
Yeah, and the light comes. But yeah, I really liked what it had to say about just Neo's whole storyline and how this movie was perfectly made for Keanu Reeves, because he's not dead
vapid
behind the eyes, but he's just so like he's just thinking the whole time.
Keanu
and his silence. It can either look like he's really thoughtful, or he can look dumb, and this played into his strengths.
This was so a lot of people making fun of him being cast in this, and it's crazy how this exploded with all the people that were making fun of the guy from Bill and Ted being the lead in this.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people just not understanding how Keanu Reeves' one-notedness works for him. It worked
perfectly.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And that's another thing I was worried about, because I've never really seen him in anything.
You never really experienced his acting.
So I was like, man, I don't know about this guy, because everyone. Like, you did a whole video about is he a bad actor?
That was years ago. I mean, I think a lot fewer people are saying that now, especially after the John Wick movies. I mean, I think people are just finally understanding what he brought to the table, right? This is not a guy with versatility, and in exactly the right kind of way. And weirdly, there are multiple different roles that he can play doing exactly the one thing he does, and it fits for dumb vapid guy and the wheels constantly turning guy. It kind of works for both.
Yeah. I will say the most the scene that got me to sit up in my seat and like stare at the screen the most was the
Just visually?
yeah, visually was the what do you call it, the capsule scene when he wakes up.
Yeah.
I've seen none of that visually.
Oh,
like,
cool.
That was crazy. Like it was so different from the rest of the movie. It was all blue and red, and like the red light emanating in the water.
We got to talk about the color palette.
Yeah, we do, because that was something we talked about. But and then just the especially because the rest of the movie is so closed, when it pans back and shows like millions of pods, that was so cool. That was.
There's a cat in here.
There's a cat.
I told you she was in here.
I didn't know that. I can let her out.
I'll do that real quick.
But no, that scene was really awesome. And I had seen none of that. I know they rip a lot of that off from Ghost in the Shell, which I also haven't seen.
And there's a couple other things too.
Yeah, but that scene was really cool.
Yeah, the thing about The Matrix for me is there's a lot of stuff that at this point ought to kind of ruin it for me, and like some of it is
just when you saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously there's the nostalgia factor, and there's just the fact that like I've always enjoyed the atmosphere of this movie and the performances, and there's nothing like Morpheus. I love Morpheus, but also a lot of the ideas that it takes, like very admittedly, from other stuff. This was where I was first introduced to those things, and so it still kind of speaks to me because it made me think about a lot of things I'd never thought about before. Some of it is the more thoughtful sci-fi human condition stuff, and some of it is the philosophy, and some of it is just basic sci-fi notions that everything this dog has done since The Matrix. Like, who knew what bullet time was before The Matrix? Stuff like that.
That was one of the most interesting things to me. Is I thought I knew what The Matrix was. I thought it was like a one note thing, but all the ideas that they kind of combined into one.
Yeah.
Like I said, that I had no idea that pod scene or that was a part of this. Like I didn't know there was giant mech robots like controlling everything. Somehow none of this has been spoiled for me over the years.
You probably didn't know the big free will predestination theme. You probably didn't know your choice. All of that.
I had kind of known.
Know thyself.
Yeah, I kind of knew like. Just in pop
Bits of
culture,
that.
you hear about red pill, blue pill. I heard a little bit about that. I knew that you were waking up, you were in a program kind of thing. But but a lot of it, like it was really cool seeing everything come together because of all the little bits and pieces I've heard. Now I can finally use those references correctly.
Yeah. Of course, it is, and this is the thing you pointed out when we were watching it, a very, very 90s movie.
Yeah.
And
Just
it's
hair
dated, and I don't care that it's dated. Like, this kind of thing I think watches pretty well after the fact as sort of a period piece where it's like, the what if statement is what if this is what if we had AI and the robots wanted to destroy us and we lost that war and then they decided to use us for fuel and the era they put us back in is 99. This era.
Yeah, Morpheus comes right out and says that. He says it's 1999.
And so the assumption, now they say peak of our civilization. I think 20 years after the fact we wouldn't say 99 is the peak of our civilization, but if you ignore that, like forgetting that part of it, forgetting that part of it,
definitely fashion-wise.
The world could continue spinning before we have the big war with the machines, potentially, after that date, and then, because I don't know how much of this you caught, but because obviously there's a lot of stuff
I need to
in
watch
Matrix,
this again. I'm going to forget a bunch of things.
It's a difficult movie to fully digest after one viewing, but
a lot of exposition too, not in a bad way, but you gotta catch.
Well, some people can't deal with the exposition, and I sympathize with that. Like I totally understand why people felt that way. Like if you're not immediately taken in by the visuals and the atmosphere and the ideas of this movie, that might drive you insane. There's a lot of goofy stuff, script-wise, and it is very much a melodrama. We are looking at a bunch of archetypes. This is not a movie that wants to be realistic, regardless of the fact that it has a faux reality inside of what is supposed to be actual reality. That reality is still heightened.
Yeah.
We're not in like a real world that looks just like ours, but then the Matrix is fantasy land. Like the actual world is also fantasy land.
Well, I mean, you said so. Like, we talked about how Morpheus basically explains the Matrix in exposition and then says, I can't explain it, you have to see it.
Yeah,
so
it's
I
hilarious.
feel like most of that is just because this came out in 99 and the world, they don't think the world, maybe it was or not, but whether or not it was, they thought the world wasn't ready for all these Japanese ideas and science fiction ideas, hard science fiction ideas to be thrown at people, and they had to explain it. Like,
that's a good
we
point.
caught a couple things where they had to explain what AI means.
And they had to explain what an
You mean
EMP
artificial
is?
intelligence?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it was just a matter of them not trusting the audience probably correctly.
And it's a heavily anime-inspired thing.
Yeah. Which would...
And in '99, there were
Just
kids
starting
into
to get
that.
popular.
It was starting to get popular, but adults were not. You know, it's
In America.
in
America.
I know, this is another major movie that you've never seen, but I'm gonna reference Back to the Future for a minute.
Great. Just throw me to the wolves.
Marty reflect. Yeah, but if I had said
All
this,
the comments.
if I had said this, you also would have said, "I don't know that movie either." So you would have thrown yourself under the bus. But toward the end of that movie, when Marty in the '50s plays Johnny B. Good, and then he gets to the end of it, and he says, "You're not ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it." You know, it's that whole thing. But yeah, I think it's really funny that earlier you said that you didn't understand the Matrix. Like, you didn't know what it was. Yeah. It's like, well, see, I couldn't explain it to you. You have to be shown what it is.
Yeah, you actually have to see the movie. It's very meta.
Nobody can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where should we go. Well, let's talk about the big color palette thing, because that was a big thing that you were. I said about you, but you were upset about, but you kind of have come around on it.
I don't want to say that. I want to say I'm conflicted. Okay, so
I mentioned this first because you guys know I do work for the channel. I'm a graphic designer. I see things visually first, and one of the things I talked to Cap about when we first started it was that I always forget that the Matrix is blue. All the covers of it are blue because the sequels are so green, and it's always weird to me when I see the first movie by itself and it's a blue color palette.
And let me say it real quick. That's always been really telling to me. Like when you look at the sequels, the green versus blue thing is a perfect encapsulation of how they got too self-aware in making the sequels of the popularity of it. It's like you were talking about earlier about how it feels like such a smaller movie than you thought it would be. Mm-hmm. This is one of those big major classic movies that changed the world, that nobody expected it to do what it did. And they didn't think it was good. And it was also a thing that was mired in turmoil behind the scenes. And there are rumors, and I don't know how true this is, that the Wachowskis were thrown off the movie like 2/3 of the way through making it, and that some unknown director made the rest of it.
I didn't know that.
I don't know how true that is, but I do know that there was some weird stuff in the background, just like with the original Star Wars, where it felt like a little bit of a mess while they were making it, and it was hobbled together into something amazing. Mm-hmm. It does absolutely have that. It's really interesting that the first movie initially has this blue color palette, and both for the logo and for the film, and when they go to the sequels, they change everything to green because that's what the code looks like, and like I said, there are a million other things that I get way too like Hollywooded and watered down and less smart than this first movie and really obvious and stuff, because now it's a franchise. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect encapsulation of now the Matrix has to be a franchise.
Yeah. And I know people that feel the same way about the Pirates movies, and there's a lot of franchises that, especially, I think this started that trend of doing the 2 and 3 because one.
Yes, it's interesting you bring up Pirates. Can I talk about this for just 1 second?
Sure.
Pirates has all of the problems that The Matrix does as a franchise with its initial trilogy. Now, I've never seen 4 and 5, and I don't necessarily care to.
Don't need to.
But with
there's one cool scene in
2 and 3 and I haven't seen that series in a long time. But Pirates 2 and 3 do exactly what Matrix does, almost beat for beat. Where the second and third movie, I mean, it makes a lot of the same mistakes. The second and third movie are actually really one movie. We do this a lot with trilogies that weren't initially intended to be trilogies. Back to the Future does it to a degree, and then it's all downhill from there. Where when you get to Pirates, or when you get to the Matrix, we make a second and third movie that are really one story to themselves, but we call it a trilogy, even though it's not really a true trilogy, if that makes sense. Where the first movie stands on its own just fine. Well, you could even say Star Wars kinda does it to a degree, but not anything like this does. Yeah. So Pirates has that, where 2 ends on a cliffhanger, and it's not really a complete piece by itself. And then the third movie has our protagonist, not kidding, both of these things do this, like in a limbo place on a blank white void. Both movies do that.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And then when we got to Harry Potter 7 or 8 and it did it, I was like, I'm so done with this. These last movies always have to have our character in a blank white void, afraid they'll never get back to reality, contemplating and internalizing things. Why do we always do that?
I never thought about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to send you off on a rant.
That's all right. I don't know where else I'll ever talk about that.
But anyway,
Yeah.
All that to say, I thought that was just the cover. I didn't know that was actually the color palette of the movie. You told me they actually have changed a lot of releases of The Matrix to the green color.
Mm-hmm. And
we watched it on Netflix, which
it kind of drives me crazy, right? And I didn't bring a copy with me, so that was the only way we could watch it. It's like, I'm finally going to sit through this. Eric and I looked at a few minutes of it once because we couldn't believe they did it, and I can't remember how we found out about it, but we put in from like, holy crap, they did that. They changed the color palette. Here's why, now that I've actually seen it that way, it doesn't bother me as much as it used to.
Okay,
I thought they did it all the way through. When we go to the real world portions, it's not that way. And I like that there is a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
I like that when we're in the Matrix, it has a green hue, because that's what the code looks like. And that gives you, at least if you're seeing it for the first time, this weird sense of something is off. Now, the blue color palette also gave you that. Everything's washed out, everything looks bleak, everything looks wrong and slightly off. There's no sun in the sky, it's always dark and drab, and it's wrong. But what I like about the notion of it being green is that ends up being a kind of foreshadowing for you're actually looking at code and none of this is actually real. Mm-hmm. And it would have been neat if they'd done it that way in the first place. What's weird about going back to it, besides the fact that just I'm kind of a purist and I want to watch it the way I remember it, is it's overdone. It's oversaturated.
Yeah. There was one scene that stood out to me a lot where his whole half of his face was green. He looked like Two-Face. Like it was. If you've seen Defenders and you know how they really overdo the lighting in that, where it's like when it's a Daredevil scene, it's red, and when it's a Luke Cage scene, it's yellow. It was like that. It was like his whole face.
It's weird, yeah.
But what would have been cool, I don't know if they did this, maybe they did. What would have been really cool is, since we're seeing this all from, he's our eyes in, and we're seeing this from Neo's perspective, is if the world didn't have any of that green until he started finding out.
See, that would have been awesome.
That would have been really cool.
That is, in fact, not what they do.
It's from the beginning?
But from the very beginning we see it, yeah. Well, and even the Warner Brothers logo was all green, just because they did that in the sequels, yeah.
That sucks. But no.
I noticed a couple things this time that I hadn't really thought about before, or things that that came back to me that I haven't ever had a chance to mention. And so I just wanted to mention a couple of these real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
There was one thing that I never really thought about before, and obviously we're fully spoiling The Matrix, and we'll have to fully spoil Arrival, because I don't know how you talk about that without talking about the without spoiling what it is. But that's usually what we do on the show. It occurs to me that there is a big plot point toward the end in ostensibly the third act. Although, do you agree with me that this movie is almost not in a 3-act structure?
Yeah.
It's
because it felt that way. Like you told me, it felt like it had a couple endings, kind of like Dark Knight style. Because I felt like, I turned over to you and said this when we were watching it, and I felt like...
You basically said you were surprised we were in the climax, and I was like, we're not really in the climax.
Well, I said I feel like this should have been... this scene feels like it should have been the second act action scene, and you said it's not really split into that, because that was kind of like between the first, second, and third act.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah,
kind of in setting up the third act, really.
Yeah, so that was cool. It was nice to get thrown off a little bit, because I'm so used to these action movies with like the first big set piece, the second one, and then the third one.
Yeah, I think it's really it's well structured. Like, it's not a problem that it doesn't fall in that mold.
Yeah. It makes it really rewatchable, especially for it makes it hold up for someone going back to it. The only person in the world that needs to go back to it in 2019.
There's a plot point, of course, toward the end where, or I guess in the middle, after Cypher betrays everyone, and I enjoyed that you loved his line as much as I did. How can he be the one if he's dead? It's one of the best line readings of any villain in anything. He is more interesting than he has any right to be, I think.
He completely changes. Like he's like a quiet, monotone character the whole, and then as soon as he turns, he's like this maniacal.
Sort of. But you can tell he's reining it in. Like I don't think it's that 24 villain thing where it's like once we know he's the mole, like he's
I didn't even think he was. I didn't know they were going to go full tilt with him. I thought he was going to be a sympathetic character who just he couldn't live here anymore and he had to get back, and he was doing this reluctantly because he just had to get back. But then he's just
it turns out he's kind of snapped. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But anyway, so there's so much about this we could talk about. What we need to do our other movie here. It's going to be impossible
to get this in. I don't know. This video's going to go on for a long time.
Well, I'm doing my best. Yeah, we're already 25 minutes here. No. So there's a plot point, of course, by the middle where we're told that every captain has mainframe codes to Zion, and Zion is, of course, the last human city, and you see it in Reloaded, and it's not nearly as interesting as it ought to be, but it's there, and that plot point is there so that there is a reason for Agent Smith to be after Morpheus and kidnap Morpheus, right? Like, that's why it's there. How come the captains need the code to the mainframe of the city? Why do they need that? And when you get into Reloaded, they can't even... A captain of a ship can't even get back into the city without hailing the city and getting permission, and they press a button to open the doors. What does them having the mainframe codes do? What is the point of that? I've seen this movie 36 times. I've never thought of that before, but I don't get it. I sent my wife a message about that. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. That's the he says."
Oh, is that, were you during the movie?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I mentioned it to you because I didn't want to distract you from the movie.
I would have had no idea. I wouldn't have been able to help you. I was just taking it all in. I felt like I was Neo in the chair, just like absorbing everything.
There were some other things I was going to mention, but we should go to Arrival. I'll tell you.
I want to talk about something real quick.
Yeah, sure. And I'll tell you about some other stuff later.
The martial arts stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
The way they shoot this movie. So this is kind of it's crazy that this worked because it's kind of a bad premise unless you're going to get actors who are also martial artists.
Yeah.
The fact that he's downloading
like Power Rangers.
Every martial art he's downloading into him, and you're going to play that scene
like he knows
everything. Like he can just switch, and he's not even. I mean, I know he's way into it now, but this was earlier, and like
that was another thing I never thought before. Where on the screen it's showing different martial arts that he's downloading. One of them is drunken boxing, and instead of I know kung fu, I wanted him to turn and go.
He like zooms in.
I know drunken boxing.
But no, but I will say the actors, I always hate it when they have actors doing the martial arts. Like if you watch Pacific Rim, that guy's that scene where they're training with the wooden swords is horrendous. He like tries to twirl it and it looks terrible. But I usually hate it when they let the actors do that much martial arts. But the way they shoot it, they kind of hacked. The way they chose to shoot it, there was like a lot of face shots like the whole time because they were doing his reactions to Morpheus
and those 360 cam moves that the movie is famous for are probably very difficult to do with a stunt person.
Yeah, but I will say that the actors did a really good job. They did do a really good job. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was like, I don't know about this. That's kind of the reason.
It mostly looked pretty real.
Yeah, it was pretty good. That's another reason why I didn't want to get into it because martial arts movies that aren't with martial arts is always kind of hard for me to watch. Like I said,
well, and Fishburne isn't really known as an action star, and he's supposed to. And in the training scene, he's supposed to be like much higher in skill than Neo is, and they somehow pull that off.
Yeah. And one thing that does annoy me, is the wire work. Not all of it. Some of it I like. That they're jumping super high. Obviously, they're learning how to do things that you can't do, and that's fine to show that. But they use wire work for some really simple stuff that you didn't need to use wires for. Just like simple ground moves, like
the bathroom fight.
Yeah, it was really close quarters. I don't know why they used the wires for that. It just makes it look awkward and clunky. I know they're trying to make him look really fast, so maybe they just were trying to pull him so it looked like they were moving at super speed, but I don't know. Some of that was weird. But
and you're not talking about when he launches off the wall and breaks part of the wall, because of course that's got to be done on wires. But
yeah. Any of the superhero stuff. I'm talking about when they're doing something that I know that either I could do or I've seen other stuntmen do. It's really weird when they use wires for that kind of stuff because it makes it look awkward and the body doesn't move that way. Same thing I don't like. Same reason I don't like using CG for people, for humans, because it's really hard to match them. I've got like hundreds of muscles in our body, and it doesn't look. It's impossible to match it perfectly. So
yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and that was a weird thing to end on, the martial arts. But
yeah, but I mean that's a lot of what you bring to this that I would have never thought about.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed
Go
it.
back and look at it at some point. Every time you watch this movie, you're gonna pick up on stuff that you haven't picked up on before. I'll throw out another one just real quick. On the previous. Pardon me. The previous viewing of this that I had before I saw it just this last time with DJ, I noticed I recognized the jazz song playing in the background during the Oracle scene, and I had never really thought about that before. But I was in a vocal jazz ensemble. I know some jazz, and I was like, oh, I recognize that song. I had to sing that in college, and the name of that song is "I'm Beginning to See the Light." Like, what a perfect choice for that scene.
Cool.
It's really cool. Yeah,
that was really cool. He told me that during the movie. I was like, oh.
I couldn't hold that one in.
It was great watching the movie with him, by the way, because he did a really good job of letting me enjoy it, but he also was there to amp up my experience a little bit with little Tim.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So we also watched Arrival, which is a movie starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. And it's a thing that I guess I heard about. Like, I probably saw a trailer and forgot all about it. Like, when you mentioned it, I was like, I've heard that title. I don't know what this is.
I couldn't believe you hadn't seen it, but you said you were behind on a lot of stuff.
Way behind. Yeah, I still haven't seen The Martian. Like, there's a bunch of stuff I've just never gone back and looked at. Yeah.
No,
I haven't seen Ad Astra yet. Like, there's all these movies. People are gonna scream at me in the comments. I still haven't seen Ex Machina. There's just all this stuff that I need to sit down and watch.
Yeah. That's crazy. Did you see the one from last year? Beginning of the year? Oh, what is it called? It's the one with the big canopy and the bear. Dang it, what is it called? It's the crazy sci-fi movie.
Is that the one with Jennifer Lawrence?
It's the one with
because I've seen that.
Padme. What's her name?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's not Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, it's her.
So that's what you were talking about.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking Jennifer Lawrence. That's not who's in that. Yeah.
Everyone's screaming in the comments.
I've been sitting here trying to... It's not adaptation. What is that movie called? Annihilation.
Annihilation, yes.
It's excellent.
You did see it.
And
okay.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
I
wish I'd seen it in the theater so bad.
And I did, and I took Sarah, and she and I were just enamored with it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't usually like movies like that, but was
she on board even till the end? Even
she was.
Crazy
yes. Yes. We bought it. We haven't sat down and watched it again, but we liked it so much we bought it.
Yeah.
The creepy creature with the screaming voice
That's
of the person.
Right.
Oh my God, it's so wrong. I still have nightmares about that. I thought of that movie a little bit watching this just because of the score, because it's got some of that like that foreboding
tone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's really cool about it is Annihilation is, I would not describe as an especially optimistic film. I don't think it's like a super pessimistic thing necessarily by the end, but like it is certainly a gut-wrenching experience. This is an absolute, I don't want to say crowd pleaser, but like it's a real optimistic film.
It feels so good.
At the end, it's wonderful. Yeah.
I'm really glad.
This is old school, traditional, old-fashioned science fiction. We need more of this. Let me tell you real quick how I would describe this movie. This one is like what the remake of Day the Earth Stood Still should have been, right?
This was how you do that, yeah.
Yeah, this is how you do that. This is like the modern Day the Earth Stood Still. What's great is it's not that story again, but it hits some of the same beats. That was, in some ways, I don't want to say that was a cautionary tale, but it was about like an alien coming to warn us that we're going to destroy ourselves. This is an alien race coming, and again, I'm spoiling everything. This is an alien race coming to tell us that if we change our perception, we don't have to. And I guess that is what's happening with Day the Earth Stood Still, but there's kind of a, like, scaring us into it a little bit, aspect to that movie. And this doesn't have that. This is basically take it or leave it. This is like, we're going to give you guys a gift if only you can come together to accept it. Almost like, I guess, like Jesus Christ or something, where it's like, if you guys will all, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you don't want it,
if you don't want it, you have to take it, right? So they come down, and there are 12 ships, and nobody understands why they are positioned in the places they're positioned in. And a lot of people assume that it must be like strategic, like military strategy, and like.
Kind of is.
It kind of is, but it isn't like us versus them. Yeah. It's these are the nations that we need to be closest to, so that if they can all come up with a compromise and work together, they will get what we are offering them, which would change their perception, it turns out, of time. And it's really interesting.
I knew so I'm actually really excited that you love this movie, because I couldn't get a read on you for the first, like, up until the last 10 minutes, because you were background, he was really tired when we were watching this.
I was,
and
yeah.
I was like, this is. I was kicking myself because I was like, this is the wrong time. This is the wrong time to show him this movie because you have to pay attention, and it's a real just dry, slow movie. So I was worried that this wasn't the right time to show it to you, and you were talking and we were talking through the thing, but then you stopped. Like the last 10 minutes, you didn't say anything, and I had no idea where you were going, and I was hoping. And I was getting emotional over here, trying not to cry because you're on the couch with me.
I don't know if you noticed, I did tear up.
I did
quite a bit.
Too. I was just trying to keep it from rolling because I'm like, Cap's at my house. I can't be crying on my own couch.
It's killer, is what it is. It's so good. There was another thing that this reminded me of a little bit too that I was going to bring. Oh, yeah. This is also a better version of a movie that came out in, I think, 98. Which is interesting because this is based on a short story that came out that same year that I had never heard of. But this is a better version of Contact with Jodie Foster, which is a good film. This is a great film.
This film's on my top 100, and it's going to move up after this viewing. I've only seen it once before this, and it's going to move up the list.
I imagine this is a better movie each time you see it.
Yeah, I mean, knowing the twist coming, and I didn't even get a read on you after the first twist. Like it's the real twist, but then they keep going with it after that. But,
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, some of it was in the moment. I was not completely sure I was right about what was happening. It's one of those things that you've got to really kind of noodle and digest as you're watching it.
Yeah, because they just give you 2 lines. They don't like hit you over the head with it. Like they give you 2 lines and then they move on, and then like none of the characters know what's going on yet. So she doesn't even realize.
In case you've not seen this, but you don't care about spoilers or it's been a while, we'll just break this down real quick so that we're not talking in cryptograms and you know what we're talking about. Yeah. But this movie is all about a thing that I have always been fascinated by and couldn't believe we made a movie about. I've thought about this my whole life. The question of how much the language you speak colors your impression of the world and changes the way you perceive things. And this takes it all the way to the nth degree, suggesting that, and this is the what if statement of this sci-fi film. It's what if language was well, I'm trying to put this in the what if format, but like, I mean, I guess the statement would be...
He doesn't have the language
Yeah, no, I don't. I guess...
If he was a squid monster, he could convey to you.
Right, yeah. It's funny. One of the only things these two movies have in common is there are squiddies of some kind. I guess it would be, what if an alien race came down and explained to us how time works and how language works, and the idea is like it's all about perception, and the idea is that the way you perceive reality is the main thing that changes reality, and it's not a reality bending thing or like what is real in the same way that the Matrix is, but it's but the idea is if you if you perceived time as it all happens at once, then you would be able to I don't really know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, just the ability to convey perfectly what you're trying to say without having to, because language is always going to trip you up.
Yeah, but like it's also not just about language. It's about it's about the way you perceive reality and how that changes your actions, right? Yeah. So it's because it's also about military action and the way we react to threats and things. But so we are making assumptions about other people's motivations because of how we understand them, and that is seeped in language.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I love though that how they did the military is never like. You get mad at them sometimes because you're frustrated because you're from Amy Adams' perspective, but they're never like the jerk military guy who's like who they don't just come in and like slam it down like, oh, we gotta blow them up, and like they're understand. I mean, you understand where they're coming from.
You even understand the Chinese general.
Yeah.
Who almost destroys the world over it.
Everybody's a reasonable character. You even understand.
No, that's right.
Even the guy, I mean, who does who puts the bomb in there, but he's a young kid in the military. Like he's like in his early 20s, and he's in the military. He's just gonna do what he thinks, you know, what he thinks is right, and he's kind of like the one main villain of the movie. But even I saw where he was coming from.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
So
That was so real quick before
Yeah.
we get away from that. That was the other. I know you love sci-fi. I thought you would love this because it's really a cerebral film. But I knew that both of us. That's one of the things we have in common is we love language.
Yeah.
That was my favorite thing growing. That was my favorite subject in school growing up. We both got. You can tell how big of nerds we are. We both got kind of probably too excited to see her diagramming a sentence.
yes, I was so stoked about that.
We both got really excited.
We need to do that more.
That was one of my favorites.
I was impressed that I actually bought that she would come to the perception that the aliens have of time based on learning the language. So the gift they're trying to give humanity, I didn't mention this earlier, is their language. And if you fully understand their language, you look at time the way they do. And to them, time is not linear. And I guess, again, it's just a perception thing. So so in this film, the idea is time actually is not linear, but we perceive it as if it is. And so we can't look ahead like they can and change. This is what I was trying to say earlier, and change our decisions based on that. But they're able to, and that makes them the most optimistic people that could possibly exist.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing the ways in which things can work out. Because if you could see the future, presumably you would do the things you would need to do to make it work out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really interesting. And it doesn't take away the possibility of choice or of, and it's funny that in that way both of these movies are talking about the same thing, because there is certainly a choice component and a free will versus predestination component, and there is a paradox here.
She had to make a big choice at the end.
Certainly, yeah. And if she didn't, I can't imagine that the world just coalesces to what they saw initially in the future, right? Because they also have to make a choice, the aliens, to do the thing that will allow them to be okay 3,000 years from now. Because humans in the future are supposed to help them out, and they have to do this thing 3,000 years in the past so that we owe them one, and we will do that later.
Yeah. Well, I think it was also just so that we don't blow each other up before that. Like they wanted to keep us alive so that we would be there to actually help them.
Well, yeah, years. Sure.
And I didn't know if you caught that. I'm glad you caught that because that's another thing where it kind of does what the other space movie that we talked about from '51. The Day There Was It kind of does that, but it has a nice spin, nice twist on it.
Yeah.
That's how we should be doing remakes. You're right. This is how we should be remaking those old movies.
Absolutely, it is.
This had to be an inspiration for this one.
And Hollywood's argument for not doing it that way is, well, nobody's heard this title,
yeah,
and so they're not going to go. Day There Stood Still flopped, and this movie was a small movie, and not a lot of people saw it, but it only cost around $50 million to make, and it quadrupled that, and must have more than made its money back, because I'm sure this didn't have a huge ad campaign. I barely heard about it.
I'm sure there was a big one for the Oscar push, but other than that, I don't think it was huge. But
one, it certainly is an Oscar-worthy movie, I'd say.
It was. I think it was nominated. It says 8 nominations right there on the cover.
And that's cool because movies like that very often don't get nominated.
Yeah, that's really cool. This dude's killing it. Like, I'm so excited for Dune next year.
I forgot that was the same director. Who is he? I always forget his name.
Denis Villeneuve.
Thank you. Well, that's why. It's hard to remember. So for a long time, I've said Duncan Jones is my favorite modern director. I think
cemented as him.
He's overtaken it at this point. Absolutely,
because he hasn't made a bad one
excellent. Yet. No, and I like Duncan Jones' style. I'm hoping that this guy is careful and doesn't fall into that same trap where he makes like a real big major Hollywood movie that flops and then.
Dune, if that's going to be one, if there is one, that
but it's in his wheelhouse is the thing.
Yeah.
And Duncan Jones might love fantasy, but he hadn't cemented himself yet as that kind of a director. He'd never done anything big. And I don't just mean fantasy versus sci-fi. I just mean like it didn't look in any way like his wheelhouse. He might love that material. He made Warcraft. Mm-hmm. He might love that material, but there wasn't like he hadn't made like a real big blockbuster yet. This guy did 2049. He's already made an epic science fiction film, and on not a lot of money. So Dune feels like, you're right, that's a big movie, and it might hurt his career if it doesn't do well, but that does feel like the next logical step for him. In a way that
perfect.
Warcraft felt like a real off-the-beaten-path weird move for Duncan Jones. Like if he had taken a Marvel movie or something.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. That's my most anticipated movie next year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure after watching this, you're a little more excited about it. I know you're not too excited about Dune.
Dune's not my favorite material, only because I haven't experienced it right yet. I have tried to read that book several times, and I can't get into the prose. My wife loves it, and I get all of the reasons that people talk about how fascinating and interesting that is, and I've heard a lot of stuff. I just haven't made myself sit down and really read it. And the original movie I think is really boring. And Patrick Stewart doesn't save it even though he's in it.
Oh really?
So,
I didn't know that. I've never seen the original, but I read the book and I love it.
Yeah, that's one of his earliest roles.
But no, I'm really glad I showed you.
He does that, I think, just before TNG. I want to say
before. Wow.
I think that was like 85, 86, maybe a little bit before. I can't remember.
Okay. But no, I'm really glad I showed you Arrival.
I think
you needed to see it, and I think you should show your wife.
I'm going to. I sent her a message immediately after we saw it. And I said we have to sit down and watch this.
See, that's kind of why I should, because I knew she speaks several languages, and I love how optimistic it is. I love what it has to say about even though you're going to lose things, enjoy the time that you have with it.
They got me so hard with the flash forwards. Yeah. I kept wondering because I knew there was something going on, and I didn't guess it. But the whole movie, we're getting what we feel like, what look like are flashbacks, and it opens.
It's Lost season 6.
That's exactly what it is. It's it's 4, isn't it? It's 4 that does the flash forwards.
Season 6 is where it ends.
6 is the last season.
Yeah, it ends where they have to go back to the island.
Oh yeah, but we know through. No, you're conflating things.
Probably because I never watched 6 because I didn't like it.
Oh sure, but no. 4 is the flash forward season where you get to. Or is it 5? I forget. But you get one of the, it's earlier than that.
Okay.
It
doesn't matter.
You get to the end of a season, and the last episode of that, it's all flash forwards, and you're wondering what you're looking at because it can't be flashbacks.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jack yelling to Kate at the airport, "We have to go back," and then you do a whole season of flash forwards. It's not 6 because that's the last season.
I gotcha.
But anyways, but you're right, it is kind of like that, except the whole movie manages to give us flash forwards that I could not have guessed were flash forwards. Yeah. Some of it is, and I like the way it dupes us. I don't feel like...
I was going to ask you if you thought it was a cheat.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's insulting. I don't think it's a cheat. It opens by giving us a clipped history of this woman, Louise, and her daughter, who is invariably going to die of cancer. And you assume it's the background for this character, and that it's going to influence her character, but never in the entire film does she ever bring it up. It's never talked about, and so I just assume she doesn't talk about it with people, but it made me feel kind of distant from my protagonist, where I was like, okay, I don't feel like I'm really in her head, and then more and more I am, because I've never seen anything do this.
Really good.
We keep in scene, and it's so weird because I always talk about how this is the way good stories do flashbacks, but it turns out they're all flash forwards.
They won't even try and do that.
We stay in scene. We're never telling another story in the past that we don't know how exactly it lines up or if it's ever going to. It's not a gimmick. You always feel like you're with her in a moment. This movie really gets POV. It is to the point where if things are really loud and she puts on headphones, suddenly they're not loud anymore. We're completely in this person's head the entire movie, which is why that all works, because you're supposed to be confused because she's also confused. And it makes sense she's not talking to anybody about it because they would think she was crazy, and she's on a military base. So when we see what turns out, and we don't realize this until 5 minutes to the end of the movie, when it turns out that everything you're seeing about her estranged husband and her, who we don't see because there's a reason we can't see him, because it turns out that it's actually Jeremy Renner, who she's been with the whole movie, and we see her daughter who's dying of cancer. Not only is it all in the future, but she is remembering it. And this movie is so good at communicating things. Like, in scene, it is very clear that you're not just getting something that you're supposed to know. It's not exposition through flashback. She's experiencing these things, and it's informing her. It feels like she's getting, like, things are reminding her of horrible things that have happened in her past, but it actually turns out they're reminding her of horrible things that will happen in her future.
She's having deja vu, which is hilarious, because in The Matrix, we talked about how they don't use deja vu correctly.
They don't know what deja vu is.
This is like future deja vu. This might be what deja vu actually is. Maybe we're getting flash
and they
forward.
never once say the word deja vu, I don't think, which is really funny.
Well, because she wouldn't talk about it.
She wouldn't talk about it like that, yeah. But then it turns out that she is... it's almost a Dr. Manhattan thing, right? Where, like, she's almost experiencing all the time at the same time.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to see a version where it has her, like, voiceover, like, say the date and the time right before every one of those scenes comes up.
At the time where she finally understands the alien language and is really able to use this, she is able to look forward and tell that she will at some point in the future talk to the Chinese general and get his phone number and get an anecdote about his wife, and then call him in the past in order to stop Armageddon. And even when we kind of are starting to get the sense that we're looking at flash forwards and that this is all about perception of time as not a linear thing, I still did not understand what was going on in that scene.
That's what's so great.
And you have to get to the credits before you really know what's going on. It's really cool.
Like, this viewing, obviously I knew, but it's such a great twist, because it's not like most twists. It's like, and we gotcha, and then you're like, oh, and then
everything
leads out for the last.
It's not a bunch of random things that happen, and then we throw a twist at you.
Yeah, you're still like understanding it as it goes on. It's so cool.
And you don't feel like you're being screwed with as an audience member, because again, you are with her, even though I'm confused and don't see how I possibly could be with her. Through this entire movie, I'm looking at it through her lens, and I'm not understanding anything until she is.
Well, I was so happy that the movie worked perfectly for you. You didn't see anything coming. You started talking about the cancer thing, and then you said you saw where it might have gone, and I was like, yes, he has no idea.
Yeah, well, and like it's funny because when I said that, I was like, I'm sure that somehow it's going to turn out that what I think I'm looking at is not what I'm looking at, but I can't imagine. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
Where I was like, okay, so she had a daughter who died of cancer in the past, and I'm hoping that the aliens don't come down and give us the cure for cancer.
Yeah.
And then it turns out none of that's happened yet.
No, it's way bigger than you. It's crazy because it seems like it's huge at the end.
Weirdly believable.
Yeah, this is such a grounded sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
It's so grounded. I mean, it's enormous, and we save the world at the end, but it feels just like...
Yeah, and the idea that if you just knew this language, you would be able to have almost cosmic awareness should come off really sappy. Like, some people are not going to like me for saying this. If this was... I mean, maybe with the right script, but like, if Nolan wrote this movie, I don't know, that doesn't come off insanely sappy, right?
Yeah, Denis Villeneuve has a great way of doing, like... He's dry like Nolan, and he's very somber, but he has a way of expressing emotion.
I was really expecting an Interstellar ending, and it's not that.
Yeah, the characters. I mean, it's pretty well known that Nolan doesn't do like romance and relationships well, right?
Yeah, and it's weird how this ends up kind of being a character piece.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing, real quick, about the twist before we get away from it, because I noticed it this time. There's one scene that seems really strange to me. Everything else is so like subtle, but there's this one scene where it seems like a different movie where she has like a dream of the space alien just sitting next to her, like while she's in the base. Do you remember that? It goes blah, and the alien is in the room.
Well, yeah, I remember I made fun of that because I was like, hey, DJ, have you ever had a dream?
Yeah.
Where there was like there was like this big scary soundtrack beneath it.
Yeah, it seems really weird, and it seems like a jump scare, and I didn't understand it, but I thought it was kind of weird to see the alien like in a full lit room. But
yeah.
But because of what you said right after it, I understand why it's there, and I think it works perfectly.
Oh.
It's because they're talking about dreams in that scene. They're saying that she's telling him that she's having dreams. She doesn't tell him that she's having like.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Flashes.
Like
she says
that feel like memories.
Yeah. And then, so that, I think that might have gotten people thinking about that that those are dreams instead of memories, and I think he throws that at you to throw you off, to be like, oh, that's what she's dreaming. And I think that
that still doesn't feel like he's screwing with me because she's wondering if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it works.
And she is having that dream. So it's like, okay, so those are the dreams she's having. It's not... Because I was worried you were going to start thinking... Because you were talking about the memories, and then they started talking about dreams, and I was like, oh, he's gonna connect the dots. But then I think that threw you off enough.
This movie that I ultimately think is brilliant, I was rolling my eyes at 15 minutes before it was over because
I love that.
I thought the twist was going to be really stupid. I thought it was going to be some kind of like she's known about the aliens all her life somehow, but she's just now realizing it. Some kind of amnesia thing. Because I still think that the kid is in the past. So when we get to the Play-Doh, not septipod. What are they called?
They're called septipods.
Yeah. Nailed it. When we get to the Play-Doh septipod, I was like, no, this is really dumb. So when she was a kid, she put this together because maybe her mom told her about it, or they had some kind of telepathic link or some crap. And then it turns out that that's because it's in the future and everyone knows about the aliens, and it's all fine and it makes perfect sense.
I love it. That's great.
We don't get a. The other thing I really like is it doesn't become a full-on romance with Renner until the end, and then you just kind of cut past a lot of their life, and I completely buy them together.
You can picture where it would have went. You don't have to. I love that we didn't see.
They don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to in the couple of weeks they work together. Well, they're actually together a lot longer than that. But in the short amount of time that they work together, they don't fall in love just because they're the only. Two people their age there that are male and female. It's
not like James Bond where like we're so focused on this thing that we feel like we should just be together because
the couple of really tender scenes they have together are all you need and perfect, and I completely buy the beginnings of a romance.
Yeah.
And then and
he looks at her a couple times and you can just tell that he's like enamored of her.
And then the thing, and she's so
awesome.
She's so authentic.
Yeah.
Amy Adams that like you love her just all the way through. The thing that, of course, made me tear up was just the notion that all these horrible things are going to happen to you, and you're gonna do it anyway, or you're just gonna live your life anyway. And what I like is it doesn't feel like she's just going through the motions because she is not able to change anything or doesn't want to mess up a timeline or anything. It's just her daughter is going to get cancer, and there's nothing she can do about that. And her husband's not going to be able to handle it.
And she knows that he's going to leave her.
And she knows he's going to leave her. And she could get paranoid and do everything she can to stop any of those things from happening. But again, it's the perception thing. She's not looking at time as a straight line. She's looking at it as like a circle, or as like it's all happening at once. So while she still does have choice, it's almost like this is also a Matrix thing, but from the sequel, which you've not seen. It's almost like you've already made the choice kind of thing, where it's like you've seen where everything goes and you could maybe try to change things, but you know why you made those choices, and so you would still make them again, if that makes any sense. Like, it's really interesting.
Really, it's hard to think. It's hard to think about. It's hard to wrap your head around sometimes.
Right, because if language does have a lot to do with our perceptions, we are speaking English and we cannot fully understand this.
And also, when does she experience the grief?
Yeah.
Because if she's already experienced it happening, because it's not like she just knows it's going to happen. She's living in the moment. She's experienced.
That's a great point. Once she knows it is, and I'm going to assume the answer is yes with this, because I'm going to assume that everything we see that happens in the movie happens because time is not linear. And so when we see her scream at the beginning, or like pleading with her daughter not to die on her, does that happen again? Like the second time around? I think it does.
Yeah, well, it definitely happens for everyone else, but I mean, I don't know if she experiences obviously experienced the grief again just being in the moment, I guess, but it's hard to understand. She basically is Dr. Manhattan at the end.
This is the question I always had about Dr. Manhattan. It's like, well, yeah, you're experiencing all these things at the same time, but once you get to there, when you know it's going to happen, wouldn't that change how you look at it? And wouldn't your reaction to it be different if you have spoilers?
I don't know. It's something about experiencing...
But apparently not! And I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Something about experiencing it not as a line kind of makes it so you can't influence things. Because you can't... how long we've been going.
Yeah, about an hour,
Like,
which we were not going to do.
Because if I just know what's going to happen, obviously I can try to fix it. But if I've already experienced it, like, it doesn't make sense to try to change it because you've already, I don't know.
Well, we just had to go off and do 2 really heady movies,
Yeah.
so...
I'm happy that these went together so well. Because
They
I
actually
just picked
kinda
it
do.
because I thought you would love it, but I didn't know it was going to have so much in common with The Matrix.
Yeah, well, and of course they are 2 extremely different things,
Yeah.
and yet the commonalities are very interesting. Well, thanks a lot for watching, folks, and leave your comments, tell us what you think of these 2 movies if you have seen them, and DJ, thanks for having me out once again.
Of course.
And for watching these movies with me, and it's great. I'm glad that neither of us disliked the other one,
Yeah.
and that we didn't have to sit through like a stinker for the sake of a good one,
Well, we've only done one he made me watch, so it was easy to pick 2 great movies.
Well, and I intentionally picked a good one just because it wasn't. I didn't pick that to do a He Made Me Watch. I picked it because you haven't seen The Matrix.
Yeah.
That's preposterous.
Sure.
All right, thanks a lot for watching, folks. We will see you again very shortly with more videos. I'm Captain Logan.
DJ.
Later, folks.